because of 12 days and all that. But finally, ready to get cracking on some more of the seasonal wrap-up show. By my estimations, it should be just about time to finish up the fall 2022 season. I'm just going to confirm that and, oh. Welcome back, everyone, to the seasonal wrap-up show. It's been a solid 3.5 to 4 months since I've recorded anything for this series. I'm still very much in the midst of making the Pokemon Journeys video, but for the sake of my own mental health, I needed to watch some fucking anime. So we are going to get into some fucking anime. More specifically, we're going to jump into the fall 2022 season because by the time I'm caught up, I'm going to be like 3 seasons of anime behind if I wait any longer. And I don't feel like waiting any longer. So we've got, what, like 41 shows. If you're new to this, I pull up a random number generator and randomly generate what shows I'm going to watch, except for the shows that I put at the very end here, which I'm going to use to cap off each video. So, just to know what you're looking forward to, we got Second Core of Spy Family, Momosu Gundam Witch from Mercury, Yamano Susume Next Summit, Chainsaw Man, Pop Team Epic Season 2, Bocchi the Rock, and Mob Psycho 100 Season 3. We got a whole lot of stuff. A whole lot of cool stuff. But let's just hurry up and fucking jump into it. So, aside from those, what do we have? We have 34 shows. Should be about 7 videos. So let's pull up, yield random number generator. Okay, come on now. There. Nope. Gotta resize the goddamn thing. But, alright. So let's see. The first show of the fall wrap-up show is going to be 30. What is the 30? Ah, Modern Tokyo Love. This was Naoko Yamada's short for that one Amazon Prime series or whatever. I should be able to find it somewhere. Let's give it a go. Alright, I just watched Modern Love Tokyo. More specifically, I just watched the episode He's Playing Our Song, because I believe the full series for this, which I believe is like an Amazon series, is actually mostly live action stuff, but this episode in particular was an anime episode directed by Naoko Yamada, who you probably know from like half of KyoAni's catalog at this point. Not half, but like K-On! And Sound Euphonium, Listen to Bluebird. And then more recently, what was that Science Saru series? Tale of the Heike. She's probably, like, easily one of the best working directors in anime right now. And honestly, this single episode outing is very in line with what I've seen from her so far. It's not super outstanding in terms of her work proper, but it's incredibly competent, very compact, very tight, but also very flowing and expressive in terms of the emotions that it wants to get out. This is such an incredibly sweet and charming, bubbly kind of romance plot about an office lady who hears a song at a bar that reminds her of a brief romance that she had in high school, and just all of the emotions that kind of go along with that. Most of the episode, I believe, is told in like flashback, just her reminiscing on her days as a awkward, shy, kind of bumbly high school girl who forms a bond with this shy, bumbly high school boy through a song that they are both really into, through a band that they're both really into, who apparently is Sheena and the Rockettes. I believe they're an 80s band, I think. While we're on the subject, that is my one criticism of this short, is it plays kind of fast and loose with time. Like, I'm not, like, they make it out that, like, maybe, or maybe not, because, like, they make it out that this band was only ever on, like, records, or, what am I trying to say? They make it out that, like, this, or the implication, I guess, is that this girl grew up listening to, like, records, like, vinyl records, and that was 15 years ago. And I believe, based on the timeline of everything, that would make her like 32 or 33. I'm almost 30. I did not grow up listening to vinyl. That was past my time. I don't know if it was the same in Japan, but that was like one of the weird anachronisms, because it's very much set in, like, the modern day segments are very much modern day. This is very much like 2020s. So, little weird there, but otherwise, it does capture this kind of nostalgic feeling very well, especially in, like, the cinematography. There's this kind of very very interesting kind of way that she colors and animates these past segments. Like, there's these very subtle like effects on the color palette and the digital processing of it all that makes these past, like, these flashback segments very, like, bubbly and, like, hazy and, like, you're remembering this kind of way. Like, one of the things that I actually, like, noticed specifically is, like, sometimes you would catch, like, a character's outline having, like, this kind of, like, bluish, like, cyan kind of haze around it. Like, this is a memory scape of sorts, and it was a very interesting way of achieving that effect, and it just felt very, like, warm and nostalgic, and I really dug that aesthetic. And in general, this is a very Naoko Yamada show in terms of, like, the visual aspect of it. A lot of focus on character acting, a lot of focus on, like, how these characters move, how the way they move conveys how they're feeling. These very intimate shots of isolation and also just togetherness in terms of the main two characters in this series, or this episode. Very warm and inviting, except in the moments where, like, there's one moment where it's like, oops, you kind of made a bit of a oopsie here. And that's another thing I really appreciate about it. It really captures, like, this awkward dumbness of being a awkward, dumb high school kid. Like, the mannerisms of it, the speech patterns, the just general, like, presentation of yourself. Like, this, like, I was just looking at this just going, wow, this is literally me. Okay, cool. That's not dredging up any bad memories or anything from my own high school days. But, yeah, I really enjoyed just that is definitely the main appeal of this one. Just the basking in the glow of these emotions that these characters are going through. And, just being able to, like, wrestle with your past and the mistakes that you've made from it, and just being able to just do that, like they say in the end, just that 1 millimeter of courage to just move forward just a little bit, and just to reset everything and just set your life going in a new direction in a way that you actually like, and so you can actually like enjoy yourself for once. And it results in not only this main character moving forward like with her like personal life in terms of like her career and what she's like, her artistic ambitions and everything, but also her romantic life. By the way, if you haven't seen me do this series before, I do spoilers for these videos, so go watch this episode. I think it's on Amazon. Go watch it. But her being able to put in that 1 millimeter of courage allows her to reconnect with this boy that she was crushing on in high school, and being able to right the mistakes that she made with that person. And just, it was just so incredibly sweet and wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. Very 80s cheese in a lot of ways, in terms of like obviously the sonic aesthetic of it. This is the song that this show revolves around, or this story revolves around, is very like 80s pop rock sounding. It kind of sounds like a little bit like No Doubt, a little bit. I guess that's the closest comparison I can draw in terms of like what this band sounds like. Reminds me of like Spiderwebs a little bit, this song, just a little bit. But yeah, really enjoyed this cute, bubbly little little short story. Great way to kick off the fall season. Now let's go to the list and figure out where I'm going to put this sucker. Alright, Modern Love Tokyo is finished. And we're going to move it. Where did I want to put it? Right in here. And we are going to give this one a strong 7. Just a cute, fun little short. Really liked that. Now, let's go over to the randomizer and see what our next pick is. It is 4. Herbivorous Dragon. This one's like a short series, maybe? I'm not sure. Let's figure out what it is. Alright, I just watched all of a Herbivorous Dragon of 5,000 years gets unfairly villainized. Which, I believe is a grammatical error. It should be an herbivorous, because it's not a hard H, it's herbivore. I believe so. And B, sounds like a light novel title, and it technically is. But this is actually apparently a Chinese anime. Those don't come up too often in my lists just because the marketing, the sites that like collate all of these anime that I pull from, the Chinese productions tend to slip through the cracks more often than not, and so I just flat out miss them. But this one ended up on the list. And it was pretty good. I had fun with this one. Just a nice little fantasy comedy with some action mixed in. It's really interesting just how far some good comedic chemistry and one really solid character design can carry you. This was just a nice little pleasantly funny series. A lot of like misunderstanding comedy, either just through pure incompetence or through willful ignorance. Just a combination of different things leads to some very
funny scenarios in this. There's not a lot of like gut-busting, laugh-out-loud stuff, but it was entertaining to be like, I was like laughing all the way through the last episode. Like, there's some good laughs in this one. And again, the characters are just, none of them are like annoying or awful. Some of them have like, could have been annoying if they were handled poorly, like they were right on the edge of it, but the scenarios managed to keep everything in check. All the other characters managed to keep everything in check. Yeah, this is just a nice little pleasant short series. The episodes are half length, so they're only like 13-minute episodes, so you could mop this up in like a Sunday afternoon probably easily. Yeah, it's just really nice little pleasant comedy. The animation's a little hit and miss. Sometimes it can be really solid with some really great action cuts, just really nice and flowing. Some nice little Sakuga bits here and there. And then sometimes it can feel a little bit cheap with stuff just kind of getting dragged and dropped across the screen. But I really did like the design sense of everything too. The costume design, the character designs. I cannot pronounce Chinese, but I'm going to try. Lingzhu, I think, is the lead female character's name. Absolutely loved her design. She was probably the standout character of the whole series. Just the absolute unwilling ignorance to accept the fact that her master is not in fact an evil dragon and is just some dude who's been chilling in a cave eating vegetables. Combined with the fact that she is immensely overpowered, leads to some very funny scenarios. Really liked her character. I doubt we're going to get more of this, though, because it looks like all of the source material has been completed for a while now. I'm not sure how many. It looks like there was like 3 volumes of a light novel and 5 volumes of a manga. And that's probably how long. Well, maybe there's more. There might be more. I keep forgetting that these were like half-length episodes. But I would tune in for more of this just to see if we get a solid ending to the series. But yeah, I appreciated this one. Apparently in the Japanese dub, the Lingzhu is voiced by Aoyuki, so that's probably a blast too. But I watched the Chinese, the original Chinese language version, and that was pretty fun too. I don't really have an ear for Chinese voice acting yet, but on the whole, it sounded solid, except for maybe the general character. Who's to say? But yeah, I would recommend this one. It's a nice little series. Now, let's see where to put it on the list.
Alright, Herbivorous Dragon is done. We're going to put it right in here. And that one gets a decent 6. It's a fun little time. Alright, so that drops us down to what, 32 now? I think? Yeah. Where am I at? Yeah, 32, right? So then, let's see what the random number generator has in store. 5. That time I was reincarnated as a sword, or whatever the full title of this one is. Okay, getting a head start on the isekai. Alright, let's do it.
I presume this is the first isekai of the season, although I can't really confirm that because I only made it through about half an episode of Reincarnated as a Sword. Because this show sucks. It is so boring and not interesting in any way whatsoever. Like, first of all, it looks like ass. It is so mediocre looking and uninteresting. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't look like ass. It just looks so bland and uninteresting. There is visually nothing unique about this show aside from maybe the design of the sword guy. Like, I don't know how you make a cat girl look boring, but congratulations, you did that. So that sucked. And like, I know this is sort of like a pseudo flash forward kind of moment. Like, it's kind of just dropping us in medias res. Like, oh, he's already been reincarnated. The girl he's traveling with is already a skilled fighter. Presumably, based on the OP, they're going to jump back to when all this happened. But I don't care, because the dialogue's boring, the characters are boring and not fun, there's no clever banter. Like, there's one line that I thought was okay, where it's like the teacher basically stole the kill from her on accident. I didn't even make it through this first dungeon. Like, I got up to the Beatles coming out, and I was just... And those looked like shit. So, I was just so bored, and the color palette fucking sucks, too. It's so drab and uninteresting and, like, pale and dirty in a bad way. It doesn't look like it's supposed to be dirty. It just looks like someone's not good at color design and not good at making this show look interesting. It sucks. Way to start way to start off the isekai for this season. Fuck it. You all know this show sucks already. Let's move on.
Alright, Reincarnated as a Sword is off the list. Let's see what we roll next in the randomizer. 22. What is 22? Hula Fulla Dance. Okay, this one's a movie, I believe. Let's give it a go.
Alright, well, I got about 13 minutes into Hula Fulla Dance. It's just kind of boring. Like, there's really not a lot going on, with one exception, which I will get to at the end of all of this, but the characters are really just flat and not interesting. The character designs are super basic and boring. Like, there was a shot of the main character with her two, like, friends in high school, and literally the only difference between her and one of her friends was the color of her hair and eyes. Otherwise, they were literally the exact same model, and I was like, okay, that's the level of creativity we're working with. Cool, gotcha. The compositing is kind of mediocre. Now, the hula dancing, from what I've seen of it, is actually pretty solid. They're not CGing anything for the dancing so far, and some of the cuts of it, like the main girl dancing in her room, were pretty decent. I wish the rest of the show looked like that, but it kind of doesn't. And it's just very slow, with not really anything interesting happening on, like, a character level or, like, thematic level or anything. Like, it's just kind of boring. And then at some point, like, okay, and then, like, a time jump happens. I don't know how long the time jump is, because it doesn't feel like a very long time jump at all. I'm not even sure if it is a time jump per se, but, like, it certainly jumps you into, like, a corporate setting. Like, she's training to be a hula girl at this resort. I believe it's, like, the Iwaki Resorts Hawaiian. Like, they say it so specifically, and it didn't sound like a made-up name. I was like, this sounds so specific that this has to be real. Because anime does this sometimes, where a corporation or a city will just make an anime to showcase said corporation or said city. And it turns out that this is a real corporation that exists. This was a real resort that exists or existed in Fukushima. So go ahead and add Hula Dance to the list of anime that I would classify as suddenly it's about Fukushima, which makes the opening scene make way more sense, because like the opening scene is like her watching her sister dance, and then it's just like a hard cut to what looks like a disaster. It's not really clear, which is why I was so confused. It's kind of just it just looks like a bunch of earth was excavated next to a stage. So that was kind of poorly done. Makes more sense now. Doesn't make the characters any more interesting because they don't really show anything like that other than one line about how, like, the main character says, like, this is the first time her parents have smiled in a long time, or smile like that in a long time. But with better characters, this might have been interesting, and with better directing, this might have been interesting. Otherwise, it feels weird, because I know Japan has a very weird relationship with tourism and like cultural tourism, cultural exports and all that. It just feels weird mixing a corporate resort with Fukushima aftermath. Now, I don't know the specifics about Resorts Hawaiian. Maybe they have like really strong community ties. I don't know, but it feels weird. And not that it affects my opinion of the rest of the show one way or the other, because I still think the characters are boring and I still think the animation's kind of weak except for the hula dancing. It's fucking weird, man. Let's move on.
Alright. Hula Dance is off the list. It drops us down to 30, I think. Yeah. So let's see what we get next. 25 is the Yuru Camp movie. Okay. Alright. Let's fucking go.
Alright, as expected, Yuru Camp movie was pretty fun. It was a good time. Aside from the time skip, it's pretty much just more Yuru Camp, although there are a few more complexities to it other than that, but it still definitely has the same overall vibe as the TV series. They did not mess up that in any regard. But also, I think making this a time skip to when they're all adults was probably the best thing they could have done for this movie, because it freed them up to do more interesting things with camping. Mainly in that, like, the main thrust of this movie is that they are revitalizing a campground. And that was a pretty fun watch, seeing them pull this campsite together. The obstacles that they have to overcome, almost losing the site entirely to something else, so on and so forth. Yeah, it was a fun time. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say about this, other than that it's more Yuru Camp. And they are older. I think seeing them as adults is certainly a plus, in that they have a slightly different view on life at this point. They have different issues that they have to deal with. They really didn't have any like conflicts when they were in high school in the first 2 seasons of the series, other than how do we get to do more camping. But this one, it's like they actually have to deal with like life stuff to some degree. It makes them feel like a little bit more fleshed out as characters. Like, Inuko, the school that Inuko was teaching at, shuts down, and she's kind of a little melancholic about that. Rin is like an office lady, and she's struggling with trying to prove herself while also not, and try to be like, she's a very overambitious in terms of the office space, and so she has to kind of balance out her priorities in that regard. It's fun watching these characters come back together, and that's another one of the big strengths of Eurocamp, is that these characters all mesh together really well. They really do seem like a old group of friends coming back together. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say, honestly, on the story aspects of it, the scripting aspects. It's more Eurocamp, but they're older. It's fun. I think that's a really fun idea for a movie. Although I will say, this is a 2-hour movie for a slice of life series. It does, you definitely feel its length, especially in the first half. Like the last 45 minutes to an hour, the last half or last 2/5 are definitely a lot better paced, I think. But it does certainly drag in a lot of areas, especially in the beginning. So I think some stuff... See, I don't know what would be cut out, though, because a lot of the stuff that you would cut out to make it a more decently paced movie are the things that kind of make Eurocamp what Eurocamp is. So I'm not really sure off the top of my head what could be cut from this movie. So if you're like super into Eurocamp, you probably don't feel the length at all, but as a solid 2-hour block of slice of life with no opening or ending themes to deviate, to like section anything off, it does start to feel its length a little bit. But yeah, aside from that, animation is still really solid. There's a little bit more like movement than the TV series had, just a little bit, not too much more. Otherwise, it pretty much just looks like the quality of the TV series, which is really solid. Really strong character designs, really hyper detailed background art that it's got this really nice color palette to it that feels very Eurocamp in aesthetic. The one thing that I will say was definitely a huge step up, though, was the soundtrack. Not that the soundtrack for the TV series was bad. It does have some pretty iconic tracks, but this one, like, they really go all out. Like, I checked the credits too. They had like pretty much a full orchestra, or they had a significant amount of like actual musicians coming in, like doing like these fully scored background music stuff. Now, I believe a lot of the tracks use the theme from the song Shenandoah, I believe, which is like an American folk song, I think. I played like a concert band version of it once, and I don't know if I've actually heard like a folk song version of it. So I could be wrong on that, but if you've seen the movie and then you look up the song Shenandoah, you will definitely know what theme I'm talking about. It's actually one of like my favorite musical melodies in terms of that I have had the chance to play as a musician. So it was really fun to see that pop up in this film. But other than that, yeah, that's about it. Eurocamp movie, good. A little long, but it's more Eurocamp. So if you're into that, you'll definitely like this. So let's go figure out where to put it on the list.
Alright, Eurocamp movie is done. And we're going to put it right in here. Just right after Shikimori. You get a decent 7. It's a fun watch. Now, normally this would be the point where we jump down to this last section here and pick from one of these 6 shows, which is what we are doing. However, I am so far behind on seasonals at this point that the second core of Witch from Mercury is already almost done. It's going to be finished in like 2 weeks. So I'm just going to completely remove the first core from the fall list and just binge it all when I get to the spring season. So instead of Witch from Mercury being the first of the end cap shows, it's going to be Core 2 of Spy Family. I don't remember anything at all about what people said about this season, but let's give it a go.
Alright, I just finished up Spy Family Part 2. Fun times. Though I can definitely see why this one is rated significantly lower than Part 1. Mostly because of the middle section of this season, which I don't think was bad in any way, but it lost a bit of steam. It wasn't quite as like compelling a watch as certainly anything from season 1 or part 1 of season 1, and definitely not like this. Part 2 is sort of bookended by 2 big arcs, sort of, kind of. Like the first arc is the big terrorist plot where they meet Bond, and then the second arc doesn't necessarily bookend it at the end, but it's like it's definitely in the back third of the series is the part with Fiona Frost and the tennis match, which was fucking awesome. And then there's like some really solid like epilogue-ish episodes / season 2 teasers at the end. But the middle section, not quite as compelling, which might actually like kind of reminded me of why I ended up dropping the manga for this series. It probably like this was like years ago now, but how long ago was it? Probably like 2 years ago, but it probably was that like that just series of like more episodic episodes where it's just like not quite as compelling for me personally. Again, nothing wrong with it being episodic, it just didn't, those specific episodic episodes didn't hold my attention. Like the what's his name, the Gulman or whatever, the one kid, it wasn't amazingly funny. Even in the anime, it wasn't that incredibly funny. Though I did certainly see the vision for like the exaggeration of this event, where we could very obviously see the punchline coming. But see, I'm even struggling to remember some of the other like episodic things in the middle. It just didn't have quite the same connective tissue as the first season or the 2 big arcs, or part 1 I should say, or the other like big arcs in part 2, which were both really solid. Loved the terrorist arc with Bond. Bond is just the bestest boy. Really enjoyed that. And the tennis match in the back third was really incredible. Like part 2 kind of for the most part wasn't quite as ambitious cinematically or in terms of raw animation power as part 1. A lot of the shots were just a bit more standard. There's a lot the really good animation moments were a lot subtler in season 2, a lot more very small character actions, until we hit that tennis match, which was fucking incredible. It reminded me of what I said about part 1, where I believe I said something along the lines of, I didn't know you could do that with a camera in animation. Like I couldn't wrap my head around how they were doing those shots. And some of the stuff in the tennis match reminded me of that, which was really nice and fun. I think we could have used a little bit more of it in the in the more softer moments of the series, but it still worked. And especially the character designs are still incredibly solid. It's always on model, always looks really good. Especially in like the last two kind of epilogue-ish episodes, the color design is just fucking phenomenal there. In these very softer, more tender moments where we're really getting into like the insecurities of some of these characters, whether it's you're trying to live up to being Lloyd's wife, or Damien trying to have some kind of connection with his father. Which actually, fun fact, I mentioned that I had dropped the manga. The point where I dropped the manga was halfway through the final episode of this season, I believe. Yeah, it was halfway through. It was the point in the manga where I dropped it was like, I think it's volume 6, I think, where Donovan Desmond first shows up. And so I am now fully into anime content that where I am not familiar with the source material. So it's going to be fun going forward from there. If you couldn't tell already, I'm enjoying the anime much more than I enjoyed the manga. Just because I think I'm enjoying it as I'm enjoying this series as a cinematic experience much more than a graphical, literary one. I guess would be the best way to describe what manga is, I guess. But yeah, this was still really fun. The spy stuff was still spy stuff. I mean, it's basically just more Spy Family, just with the structure being not quite as solid as the first season. Because I mean the first part. I hate when they do this. It's like, oh, it's part 1 and part 2, and then season 2 is gonna come. I hate when anime does this. But anyway, part 1 was just really dense with really important character moments, really important plot moments. Not all of them were great. Like, I still am not a huge fan of Yuri, Yor's brother. He makes an appearance or two in this season. That was another one of those like middle episodes. Now that I'm thinking about it, not quite as solid, but yeah, overall, really enjoyed Spy Family. It was both parts 1 and 2, though part 2 just ever so slightly less. It's a fun time, and I can't wait for season 2, which, according to my watch that I'm not wearing, is in like 3 months, maybe? I think it's like fall 2023, so sometime in October. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But in the meantime, let's head over to the list.
Alright. Core 2 of Spy Family is done. And I believe we already have the main series up here in the ranking, so we're going to make you orange for fall. And unfortunately, we're going to move it down a place. Just one place. It was just because the second half wasn't quite as strong as the first, but still really dang fun.